Okay, hello and good morning everyone. Welcome to JFD Brokers Traders Espresso with me, Darius Anucauskas. Today's the 19th of February 2019. So yep, welcome everyone. Welcome to this Tuesday's morning session where we're gonna have a look at the markets, a few charts, the usual stuff. But before we do that, let's quickly have a read through our risk disclaimer. So the content we produce does not constitute investment advice or investment recommendation, should not be considered as such, and does not in any way constitute an invitation to acquire any financial instrument or product. As always, a few seconds for you to read the rest and we can continue. Okay, so now then guys, let's jump into the charts. Now the first one I want to touch on here is the CAC40, so the French index. Looking at this, of course, it continues to travel nicely to the upside. You can see that yesterday it managed to close the daily candle in the positive territory. The only thing is that you can see that this level right here, and I was mentioning this one in one of my previous videos last week, basically, where I was telling you guys that this level right here around the 5170 level, approximately there, around, should I probably reiterate that, the 5165 approximately there, near the highs of November here of last year. So this is where the index got stuck, and of course for now, for us, certainly we will continue targeting higher levels, but for us, let's say we would need to see a nice good further push away from this 5165 level to the upside, of course, and then we will target the next potential area of resistance just slightly above that, of course, not far from this level right here. And the area that we're going to be targeting next will be around the 5205 area, approximately there, which was near the highs of the 17th of October and the low of the 10th of October. So quite an interesting level this one is, like I said. So for now, of course, you can see that the index continues to run above this upside support line, this short-term upside support line, running taken from the low of the 27th of December. And like I said, we could see maybe a little bit of a further push here higher, but again, keep your eyes on this 5205. This is where the holdup could occur, because also, just as an idea, just to throw it out there, in a way we could see this maybe as a rising channel formation here, guys. So that's why maybe the 5205, maybe just slightly above that, could kind of hold the index down, and we could see maybe a bit of a correction here back to the downside here towards these lower levels. But of course, this is just an idea. Don't kind of run on it, and don't base your analysis on it as well. Just to kind of keep in mind, guys, basically, that we could see something like this if, of course, this if this gets rejected around here, around this level somewhere, and if we see a push lower, then yep, we could class this as a nice rising channel formation. For now, be very cautious with the downside, especially if, let's say, this decides to travel lower and we see the price dropping below the 5,115 level around here somewhere, which is also around the 200 EMA. Of course, we could target lower levels. The only problem is, of course, this upside support line, this lower side of the rising channel formation, potential rising channel formation. In a way, of course, as you probably understand it correctly, we would like to see a break of this line here, of this upside line, in order to kind of consider further declines. So in a way, what you could target here is this little area right here, which acted as good area of support around the 50-60 level, approximately there. So in a way, this could be that gateway towards lower levels, and this is where we could then target the this downside resistance line. Let me just quickly put an arrow here for our future reference. This is what I'm basically talking about. So in a way, like I said, if we do see a break of this upside support line and a drop below the 50-60 level, we could then target this little in a way tentative downside resistance line and target a test of this downside resistance line from above. So for now, of course, be very cautious with the downside. Certainly it seems that it would like to travel further up here. We do have some good potential areas of resistance, so let's see if it plays out or not, if this idea actually plays out with the rising channel formation. Let's jump into a few other instruments, like for example WTI, which is well, it's a bit struggling to climb higher. And if I jump into a 4-hour chart on this one, you can see that today it's already trading below the pivot, which is slightly a bearish indication. Don't get me wrong, it's just the beginning of the day here, and we could see this one maybe traveling further up here, and if it does push above the pivot here today, certainly keep your eyes on the highs of yesterday, which were around the 56.30 level, which is also not far around the R1 of today's R1, of course, and a nice good push above the 56.30 could open the path towards higher levels. But if this remains trading below the pivot here today, which is around the 56 level, now certainly be very cautious. We could see maybe a bit of a slide here lower. The only thing is that for better confirmation, we need to see a break below the 55.70 level. You can see that how well it acted as a nice area of support here, even yesterday, and so basically yesterday, so it acted as a very good area of support. So keep your eyes on that one, guys. Like I said, this is when we will target slightly lower areas like the 55.20, or even actually going further down towards the 54.75, or even actually a better level that we've got here is the 54.20. But then again, that's a bit of a let's say a drastic move here to the downside. What you could keep an eye on is, of course, it's just kind of, before I draw this, it's a bit of a tentative one, of course, but still you could keep a close eye on it. And if you connect these two lines here, the lows that we saw here back on the 11th of February and the 14th of February, this little tentative short-term upside support line. So in a way, this is what basically could happen. We could see a drop below the 55.70 and then a retest of this this upside support line, from which maybe the bulls could kind of pick it up from here and drive back up again. So for now, of course, this is just an idea. Mainly what we're going to continue doing for today is observing some key areas of resistance and support. So on the upside here, we're keeping a close eye on the 56.30. A nice good pop above this could open the path towards higher levels. This 56.30 also coincides here with the R1, and on the downside is the 55.70 level, which kind of held this commodity nicely from dropping lower. But like I said, if this suddenly breaks, then yep, we could see a slide further down. The only thing is, don't forget about this little tentative, very tentative upside support line, which could also come into play, let's put it that way. Jumping into one crypto, which finally, to be honest, finally the crypto market is moving, because it was a bit of a drag, and it was a bit difficult to kind of watch it, to be honest, in order to, let's say, maintain our interest in the cryptos in general. So finally we're seeing some nice movement here. So basically, since last week here, when this crypto managed to break towards the upside here and managed to break through this little range that it was trading in between the 100 level and the 110 zone. So now again, the Ethereum managed to push higher and on Sunday you can see that on Sunday it managed to break above the 125 level, and now it's currently sitting near the 146. Yesterday it had an attempt, or should I say actually today it already had an attempt to test the psychological 150 level, but just fell shy of a few points just from reaching that that level here, that barrier. So of course this is the one that we're going to be keeping a close eye on. This in a way it's like a psychological one, so the 150 level could be that gateway towards higher levels like the 159, or you can round it up towards the 160, just about 10 points higher. But of course if this continues to push further up here, then we could end up maybe testing the 108 level. So the only thing is that don't forget that the 106 is kind of that very important one to watch, because you can see that back here in December and also in January it held the price from driving higher, from kind of accelerating. It held that held Ethereum down, and you can see that how well it kind of slid lower. So that's why, guys, even if we're going to see a nice good pop above the psychological 150 level, probably the 160 is probably the more important one to watch for those who are willing to look into this from the more medium term perspective. Certainly from the short term perspective, don't get me wrong, we could see maybe a bit of a slide here, maybe a bit of a correction. We are currently trading above the pivot, but if this decides to slide lower a little bit below, let's say the 140 level, would probably recommend to remain very cautious in this one, because in a way we could also draw this a little upside tentative support line, just for us to kind of have it as a gauge, let's put it that way, and just to see how it's performing and how it's if it wants to continue climbing higher. So in a way we could see a slide lower here, even if it continues dropping back down towards the 130 level, or even actually maybe slightly below that, but still, as long as this upside support line remains intact, and I do understand it's a bit of a tentative one, but as long as it remains intact, we could see maybe another leg of buying later on, and could see the bulls kind of jumping in here and pushing this one higher again. So of course don't exclude the situation where, let's say, even if we could see a drop lower, and we could probably just ignore the test of this upside support line, and Ethereum could actually reversed from, let's say, 130 and then push up again. So for now, guys, probably to be more on the safe side, given that it's already from the short-term perspective, it's quite overextended to the upside. Keep a close eye on the 150. A nice good push above this, yes, could potentially open the path towards the 160, which is probably the more important one to watch. But if this decides to drop below the 140 level, keep your eyes on the 130, and let's see if it actually then manages to reach this upside support line or not, or is actually going to reverse, let's say, earlier and then push back up again. So for now, this is the case with this one. It's a very tricky one. Don't forget, like I said, to have your stop losses in place if you're trading this one, and yep, guys, like I said, keep an eye on these key areas of resistance and support. Jumping into USDCHF now, this one, I was talking about this one yesterday, and basically I was telling you guys to keep an eye on this 1.0028 level, approximately there. You can see how well that acted as a nice area of support. We can see that the pair since then traveled higher, and it's kind of still remains below this upside support line that got broken yesterday. So in a way, for us, for now, we're still, let's say, slightly more bearish than bullish. The only thing is we're probably going to be more cautiously bullish, because you can see that it still trades below this upside support line. For us, let's say, to get comfortable, to start getting comfortable with the upside, we would need to see this one driving back above this upside support line, and in a way, in order to kind of from, let's say, from the more medium term perspective, in order to kind of aim for higher levels, we need to see a nice good push above the 1.01 level, and this way we could then, like I said, target higher levels like the 1.0130 or above. But for now, as long as it kind of remains below this short-term upside support line. We're going to remain somewhat bearish, but still for better confirmation, we're keeping a close eye on this 1.0028 level. A nice good drop below this could send the pair initially towards the psychological 1 level, or maybe a little bit lower here towards the 0.9990. But again, for now, guys, continue observing these levels. Then yep, let's see how it plays out later on. But for now, we are slightly more to the bearish side rather than the bullish. But again, like I said, we will switch our views if we see a push back above this upside support line and a break above the 1.01 level. Euro dollar, last one I wanted to quickly touch on, and basically this one yesterday had a nice push higher, but you can see that it's managed to get back below the 113.10 level. Now, I was talking about this in one of my previous videos, guys, and or should I say actually yesterday's videos. If we see this one traveling back above the 113.10 level, basically that means that something still not good in the bull block, and we could see maybe more bears joining in again. But looking at this right now, you can see that the pair is trading below the pivot, below today's pivot already, so which is a bit of a negative sign, of course. If this decides to travel further down, watch out for the 1.1270, but slightly below that we do have the 1.1250 level approximately there. You can see that how nicely it held the rate from closing below that level. So for now, of course, it is a bit tricky here. Certainly what we could do here is take a more cautious approach in a way and wait until this decides to drop below the 112.50, and this way it could confirm a forthcoming lower low, and we could then target the this very important 112.15 level marked by the low of the November last year. So basically the 112.50, this is what we're looking for downside. A nice good drop below that could send the pair lower. On the upside, well, I mean, looking at this, even if it decides to travel higher here and starts breaking these key resistance levels like the 113.40 or the 50, still it remains below this tentative upside support line taken from the lows of November last year. So in a way, for us, let's say, to get more comfortable with the upside, we would like to see a nice good strong push above the 114 level approximately there, and only then we'll target higher levels, slightly higher levels, of course, because we do have some potential resistance here as well, like for example this little downside resistance line. This time is a little bit of an imaginary one, but this is what I'm talking about. Basically it could get held here, but if this decides to push further up again, then yep, from the medium term perspective we could see further acceleration to the upside. But to be honest, that's quite a long way to go until we could see this, the 114 level. So let's see how this plays out. For now, you can see that this is sliding below the pivot, which is kind of creating this slightly more negative picture around it from the short-term perspective, of course. So in a way, for now, guys, keep your eyes on the 112.70, but what's more important, keep your eyes on the 112.50. Let's see if it actually breaks it below or not. Okay, guys, I hope you found it useful. Thank you very much for watching and listening, and if you want to join me later on at my Trader's Tea Time, and that's 14:15 GMT time. But for now, I hope you have a wonderful trading day, and I'll see you later. Bye-bye.